You're in the C-Space studio. I'm James Kotecki here with Andre Swanston. He's the co-founder and CEO of Tru Optik. Welcome to the studio.
Thanks for having me.
So Andre, you're all about streaming television and the data behind it. Tell me, what's your elevator pitch? How do you define your company to somebody that you just met here at CES?
Yeah, I would say Tru Optik is the leader in kind of data-driven audience intelligence across streaming TV, or what it's called in the industry, because everybody loves acronyms, OTT.
Over the top.
Over the top, correct. And really what that means in layman's terms is watching or streaming television shows and movies over the internet. And whether that's on a desktop or a mobile device or a connected TV like a smart TV or Roku or Xbox, it's all the same.
Let me ask you an existential question. What is television nowadays? Because you mentioned movies as part of that too, but I mean, is a YouTube clip counting as television in this definition, or what defines what a TV show is?
So I would say that longer form professionally produced content is TV. So a lot of YouTube is still user generated, short form, clip based. I wouldn't necessarily call that television. Longer episodic stuff on YouTube, I think, is television, even if it's not watched on a TV, right? So TV doesn't have to be watched on a TV. It could be watched on, your mobile phone. So I think that's really the difference. Is if it's professionally produced, if it's a little bit longer, it doesn't have to be at 30 minutes, but if it's more than it shouldn't be a 30-second clip either, though, right?
It's funny because it's almost like what you just said, TV doesn't have to be on TV. It's almost like we're trying to put these 20th century terms into the 21st century ways that they're actually being used nowadays.
Yeah, and it's not just the terms. It's a lot of companies trying to use older technology to try to figure out how to make sense of everything that's going on, and that's one of the real things that Tru Optik has been tackling. It's how to kind of advance the ways, the technologies, the logistical capabilities of measuring what people are watching across these different screens, how to use that intelligence to enhance the viewer experience, or how to use that to help advertisers reach the right person across their Amazon Fire TV or their PlayStation, and that's kind of really where we've been playing.
So let's dive into that a little bit. What are your numbers telling you about streaming? What's the state of streaming in 2017?
So, 2017 is going to be massive. I mean, what we saw in 2016 and kind of the trajectory is just massive growth across all avenues of streaming TV. So, obviously, everybody's aware of Netflix and Amazon, Prime, and the kind of ad-free solutions that are very popular. But I think what is really happening in 2016, and I think is going to continue in 2017, is kind of the growth of two parts. It's the free ad-supported solutions, so solutions like Sony Crackle or Tubi TV, and then also you see all the big cable companies and satellite companies launching pretty much cable on the internet, right? I mean, some of our clients may be annoyed if I categorize it like that, but for all intents and purposes, you can get a cable package, a little bit slimmed down, so you can watch live sports and other things. And even some of the multi-channel networks that were on YouTube are now becoming a little bit more independent and allowing and getting more interaction directly with the consumers across the Rokus and the Fire TVs and stuff.
So maybe you're professionally biased here, but is traditional TV toast, or how does it interact with everything that you're doing on the over-the-top side?
Yeah, so it's all related. Most people aren't cord cutters. I mean, that is the sexy term that's been going around for the last 3 years. Most people are shavers, right? So most people, they're not paying for 4 or 5 satellite or cable boxes in their houses. They have 2. And then they have a Roku and another TV, and then they have the Xbox on the other one, or they just like watching stuff on their couch or on their tablet. So most people really are doing both, is what we see. You may have younger. Maybe I'm barely still a millennial. I don't know anymore. Who really knows sometimes what the cutoff is, right? I like to consider myself one. But as you see, like younger generations, they may actually end up being like kind of cord nevers. And come into only knowing the Netflixes or knowing the Sling TVs and never really having those standalone solutions. And really what the industry is trying to do is figure out how do you make sense across all the different ways that people can interact with content. It could be through a linear television, normal cable situation. It could be streaming on a gaming console or connected TV. It could just be watching stuff on their mobile device. And how do we kind of make sense of all of that to have more of a better picture of our audience?
Let's talk more about that demographic, the millennials. It seems like everybody's been chasing that demographic for several years. It's been kind of a hot buzz term. What does your data tell you about who millennials are and what they want in the context of what they're watching?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing that we've seen is people want what they want, when they want it, on whatever device is most convenient at that time. And there's much less brand loyalty to a particular service or network, and it's really about the actual content, right? So just because you're CBS or you're ABC doesn't really mean much of anything to most millennials. But if you have Designated Survivor, a new show on ABC, and a millennial loves it, they're going to watch it. But quite frankly, they're going to watch it because they like the show or they like Kiefer Sutherland, not because they really cared at all that was on ABC. And I think that's the biggest thing that's different with millennials is kind of this expectation of having whatever you want and expecting to enjoy it. And if you don't enjoy it, you've kind of lost them. And then we've really been able to see that with the data in terms of kind of the variety of content that millennials consume, not being able to lock them into a particular day of the week or a particular time of the day that they're going to consume content. And I think that's kind of the biggest difference that the data shows you.
How do marketers rethink what they should do or maybe retake some of the power in that situation? Because you seem to be describing a very consumer-focused world where the consumer is kind of king.
The consumer, the biggest winner in the evolution of kind of the way content can be distributed, the fact that it's easier, the barrier to entry to produce really high quality content is lower. The biggest winner is actually the consumer and the viewer that has more choices and more options. So the only way to combat that, I believe, and obviously the thesis of our entire company, is to have more data and more ability to not only measure and understand the size of your audience, but that's really kind of like the low-hanging fruit, right? The second thing is to be able to segment them based off of behavior, based off of not just wide swaths of like age groups, 18 to 34. What does that really, I mean, I'm a completely different person at 35 than I was at 20. So what does that, it means absolutely nothing, right? Or things like race. That means absolutely nothing in terms of oftentimes the consumer brands you may interact with or the television shows you like. So I think having behavioral data and the ability to kind of understand what people actually want is really what is now paramount for both distributors of content as well as brands and advertisers and agencies to understand, and that's really what we've been focusing on over the past 3 years.
You mentioned being a different person at 35 and 18. It's funny to me, people that are, I'm 31, and people that are still in college are also considered millennials. And I don't really feel that similar to them in kind of the way that they might see the world. I guess we're kind of in the same demographic. When we think about what's coming right after the millennials, those cord nevers potentially that you talked about, how do marketers think about reaching those people, especially if they're using the kind of premium non-ad situations like, I guess Amazon Prime is an example, as well as Netflix?
Yeah, so we've seen a lot more agencies and brands coming to try to get data to understand how brand placement and branded content can influence, brand lift or actually what the ROI is for direct sales. So, and I think there's two reasons for that. Not only is there a lot more ad-free content that people are consuming, but even across the over-the-top and streaming ecosystem, you're seeing smaller ad loads. So what I mean by that is you may have had 10 ads or 8 ads that showed when you watched it live on CBS or NBC, but when you watch it even on that same network's app or you watch it somewhere else, you're only seeing 2 ads or 3 ads. And so so brand placement and branded content, I think, is a huge opportunity. The only issue is with that is that to say that, oh yeah, our show gets a lot of 18 to 49-year-old males. What does that mean if you're Chevy? It doesn't really mean anything. I mean, in the big scheme of things. So I think showing that attribution and saying, yes, we had people that saw your car being talked about on this show or being driven by the character, and then X amount of those people went into your dealership or actually made a lease. I think that's where things are really going, and I think over the next 12 to 24 months, we're going to see a lot more of that kind of closed loop attribution for branded content and brand placement.
Does branded content have a cheesiness problem in some way? Like, there's a cheesy way to do it, I should say. Like, to get on there and say, oh, hey, have you heard about this new product, in like an awkward way and dialogue on the show. I also know that, different companies have been putting up their own shows. Like, why not put up your own internet series? I don't know if it was Chevy, but it was some car dealership had like a series of like a sitcom that was set at that dealership. I think Chipotle did a sitcom or some kind of online series a few years back. So is there a chasm to be crossed there, or is it always going to be a little bit different than what you might call pure content that's not kind of branded in that way?
Authenticity. If I could say it in one word, it can't just seem completely, oh, they paid that person to say they like my product, or the car pulled up and it stopped for 5 seconds on the emblem on the front of the hood. It's got to be more authentic, and I think it's funny, as much as people talk about data, and obviously, I'm the CEO of a data-driven company, so I know it's important. Creative is, if the data is great and the execution or the creative is terrible, then who cares if you reach the right person with the wrong, ad or the wrong quality ad? And if you have great creative, but the wrong people are seeing it. So it really goes hand in hand, but I think authenticity is something that is key.
We're getting towards the close here. What else are you excited about in 2017 generally? Whether that's something that you guys are working on or just an idea that you've heard kind of percolating here at CES.
Yeah, I think one of the things, kind of the evolution of our company, we've, in 2016 and 2015, had a lot of proof points with major agencies and major media companies and brands in terms of the different solutions or different products that we could have for them. And what we launched yesterday at our big press event was kind of the over-the-top marketing cloud, which is a comprehensive suite of solutions where everything is more integrated. And I think what I'm really excited for in 2017 is kind of all the partnerships that we're going to be putting in place in the periphery of our marketing cloud, and that I think just going to allow for a lot more capabilities in the ecosystem, which I think are going to benefit both consumers in terms of their what they're viewing, and then advertisers in searching and reaching the right people. And there's just so much more content that's being developed, and bigger, better TVs and virtual reality, and I just think it's just a great time to be both a consumer and somebody in the industry.
Well, to use another outdated media phrase, we will stay tuned, and we will be watching you very carefully.
It was authentic, though.
It was. I tried to just place it right in there. Andre Swanston from Tru Optik, thanks for joining us in the C-Space
thank
studio.
You so much for having me. Pleasure.
I'm James Kotecki. Keep it right here for more great C-Space studio content.